This little video is about finding the range of a set of information. It's not an average, it's a piece of information that works alongside or works in conjunction with an average. It provides a little bit of extra detail, and the word range in the English language might be used to describe like a range of options, a range of products, a range of tastes. So in other words, where there's a spread of numbers, a number of different ideas, a range of options, meaning there's more than one. So in other words, we're looking at the spread of a list of numbers, mathematically it's the highest value subtract the lowest value. In other words, what's the gap between the highest and lowest value? Is it a small number, which means all the numbers are close together? Is that gap large, which means they're all quite spread out? So it's a kind of important, quite a powerful number that we can work out. So just have a look for an example with these two sets of numbers here. You'll notice that if I were to calculate the mean of each of these, the mean of data set 1 is, if I add them all up, 5 and 8 is 13, and 9 is 22, and 18 is 40. The mean is 40 divided by 5, which is 8. So we could say that the average value there is 8. If you look at data set 2, 5 and 7 is 12, and 8 is 20, and 8 is 28, and 12 is 40. So the mean of this data set is 40 divided by 5, which is also 8. So in both of these lists, the average is 8. Now, if you were to compare them and say, well, do they look the same? You might say, well, no, they're actually quite a bit different. The average value is the same, but the story of what's going on inside that list is quite different. And in data set 1, what we can do is we can look at the range. So we can say that the range, and when you're calculating the range, even though you could work it out mentally, I want you to demonstrate, I want you to write down the calculation. That's really important. So in data set 1, the range is going to be the largest value, which is 18, subtract the smallest value, which is 2. So our range is 16. So there's a gap of 16 between the highest and the lowest. And in data set 2, the range is calculated by the largest value, which in this case is 12, subtract 5, which is the lowest value, which is 7. So it's quite clear that data set 2, the values are closer together. They're more consistent. And in data set 1, the values are much more spread out. So when we lose all that information, you can see that having that extra bit of information about the range is actually really important. Rather than just saying the average is 8, if we say the average is 8 and the range is 16, it tells us a different story than if the average is 8 and the range is 7. Okay, so we're going to explore a bit more about range later on, but for the moment, all you really need to be able to do is to correctly calculate it. So a couple of very basic examples. Find the range of the following data set. It goes without saying that the range is not the first value and the last value, the difference between those two. It's always the highest and the lowest. So it may be that you want to rearrange a list of numbers, or at the very least carefully work out what the highest and the lowest is. Okay, so with this data set here, I'm just going to quickly rearrange it. I've got 3 as my lowest value. That's 3. I've got 8 and 9 are both single digit values. I've got 14 and then 15. 14, 15. Oh, I've got 12 there. See, I didn't spot that, and that's one of the reasons why it's good to write them out and not just kind of try and use your eye. So I've got 12 in there. I've got 14 and 15. That's me up to there. I've got 16 and 17 and 21 and 22. That's them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pieces of information. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. I'm quite confident I've got them in the right order, which means that I can work out the range. Again, even although I know that 22 subtract 3 is 19. I'm not going to write down range equals 19. I'm going to communicate which numbers I've chosen, and that helps in explaining why you're doing it. And then we can say now the range is 19. Okay. And sometimes you might solve problems where you know the range and you're just trying to work out other values. So we can say that the range for a list of numbers is 32. That means the gap is 32. It means that the gap between the first and the last is 32. Now, you might be asked to find the smallest value or the largest value. You just need to decide what information you've been given. So I've been told that the smallest value is 37, which means that obviously the largest value is going to be 32 more than that. So I could just work out the answer in my head, but I'm going to communicate what my thinking is and say that the largest value is 37, add 32. Okay, explaining your thinking, explaining your working is not a sign of weakness that you can't do things in your head. It's just the fact that you are communicating to other people how you've worked it out. So I'd like to see you do that. It's not just about finding a number by doing mental calculations, it's about how you explain what your answer is. So there's a couple of examples using the range. You can go on and work on some of the problems that I've set. Okay.